Hey folks, Erik the Viking here. This is my first proper post showing off some of my collection. I'd like to show you some of my Frank Zappa records. I'm basically going to do them in order by label. Obviously I'm sure you guys, if you're watching this, know about Zappa the man. I'm a massive fan of his. I first got into Frank's music when I was about 6, believe it or not. My dad was listening to Overnight Sensation in the car, and I still remember hearing it and just thinking, what the hell is this crazy music? And obviously I had no idea what the lyrics were about, but it just stuck with me. And that was the only album my dad owned, and his friend, a good friend of his, was a big fan, so he lent me every album that he had, which was pretty much everything from '66 up until the late '70s. So obviously it was quite an early age to be getting into that sort of stuff. Yeah, what can I say? I've never been the same since. Yeah, so I'd like to show you some of my collection of my Zappa records, starting with the Verve label, which he was on with the Mothers first. I don't have anything he did before that, because finding them is nigh on impossible, especially in England. I've only got 2 singles that are on the Verve label. I hope this comes out alright. I have the first officially released Mothers single, Help I'm a Rock. It's actually It Can't Happen Here, as it is on the CD. It's Help I'm a Rock Part 3. This picture's a bit blurry. With How Could I Be Such a Fool on the B-side. It's a pretty nice copy, and it's a stock copy, which is nice, because you don't see those as much as the promos. Yeah, I've only just got this actually. I think I paid about $20 for it, which wasn't bad. On eBay, shows you can still get bargains on there. For years, the only other copy I had of this was snapped in half, because my postman had not read the fragile notice on the parcel and bent it in half and put it through the letterbox. Yeah, don't know if that's happened to anyone else. The only other Mothers single I have on Verve is the original promo of Desiree from the Reuben and the Jets album, credited to Reuben and the Jets as well, with Jelly Roll Gumdrop on the B-side, that way around. Both different mixes to the album versions. Pretty nice to have if you're a big collector. I mean it's just a nice single really. There was another Reuben and the Jets single that came out only as a promo, which is probably one of the rarest Zappa singles out there. Was the Reuben and the Jets version of Anyway the Wind Blows, with I think Jelly Roll Gumdrop on the B-side, and I think it was replaced by this release. Yeah, again, a nice single to have, and you can still find this sometimes. It's just a decent price that's the problem. So that's all of the Verve singles I have. Now on to, of course, the masterpiece that is Freak Out, one of the best debut albums ever released, I think, in my opinion. This is a really nice original stereo copy, an American one, with the, where is it, the Freak Map advert, which were removed from later pressings. I mean, look at that, it's just brilliant. Brilliant record, and of course, as you know, very adventurous for its time. It's taken me a long time to find a copy in such nice condition, a stereo one especially. I used to go Zappa crazy and buy loads of multiple pressings. I had monos, I had all the English ones, blah blah. And one day I sort of thought, I don't really need all these different copies, I just want one of each. So I started downsizing it a few years ago. I might regret it someday, but I don't at the moment. That's the original Verve in the sleeve there. And of course this was a double in America. Lovely original blue labels there. And this is a really nice copy. I actually got this, I got the records from a copy I bought years ago in Camden Market in London. I think my parents took me there for my 13th birthday, and it was there, and it was about 30 quid, which even now is a pretty good price, but the cover was pretty worn, but I've since picked up a nicer cover with yeah, it had wrecked records in it, so I just swapped them around. They were the same pressing, so nothing too blasphemous. Right, now Absolutely Free, the second album, of course. I've got 2 copies of this because I don't know which one to keep. If you look, they're both slightly different. The one on the one on my right, far right, the title is lower. This is supposed to be the first pressing, as far as I'm aware. And also, I don't know if it was sharp on the camera, but there's a grey sort of tint around the lettering, the absolutely free lettering, whereas this one doesn't have that. But they're still both from the same year, I think. I mean, there's a bit of mystery about it. It's not many people really talk about these different pressings. But when you sort of get to buying all these different, it's such good artwork, buying all these different Zappa albums, you do pick up on that sort of thing. And again, this is the original Verve label. And again, like I say, I can't decide which one I want to keep, really. Probably me just being fussy. But yeah, again, another great album. And what's the other cover there? They're both the same on the inside. Now, this is probably quite an adventurous statement, but their third album, We're Only In It For The Money, is probably my favourite album of all time. Don't ask me why, I couldn't possibly answer you. I first heard this album when I was about 7 and had my mind completely blown. And funnily enough, the version I first heard was the original, was the 80s remix that Zappa did, which is crap compared to the real thing. Don't know if you guys know the story, but the original Verve, a lot of the master tapes were so badly damaged, Zappa had to redo the drum and bass tracks for this and Reuben and the Jets. Reuben and the Jets is still only available as that mix. They are shockingly bad. Sorry, Frank, but you know, I guess you had to go with the times. But of course, this has got the Sgt. Pepper artwork as well. This is a lovely copy. I'm very proud of this, and it still has the cutouts sheet as well. There's 2 different pressings of this. There's mono and stereo, obviously. This is a stereo on the blue label. This is the very first pressing where it's a slightly different edit. I think this is there's a debate as to which one came out first, but I think this is the first one because it has the I'm trying to remember what bits are different now. If you're familiar with this album, which you probably are if you're watching, it's, my mind's gone blank. Wait a minute. Completely gone. I know that, okay, basically there was this version and then there was another edit that came out, which is probably a bit rarer than this one now actually. You see it a lot less, and you can tell it's usually that because it has a sticker saying the Mothers on top, which this pressing never had. I did have that one as well, but I've since sold it. Yeah, only the Mothers would have worn dresses back then, wouldn't they? But yeah, also, big shout out to Motorhead Sherwood, who passed away sadly last Christmas. One of Zappa's close high school friends. Yeah, anyway, I'm drifting off on a tangent here. Yeah, the different edits, off the top of my head, the second edit, which is called the more censored version, has the line, "I will love the police as they kick the shit out of me on the street, cut out of Who Needs a Peace Corps," whereas this has that on there. Obviously quite risque for the time, 1967. Started one of many legal battles that Zappa had with MGM, who owned Verve at the time. Yeah, it's just a great album. It's just one of those albums that you just sort of, for me, I just listen to it and I guess now I take it for granted. I'm so used to everything that happens on it. But it's just one of those things, I mean, you think about it, how the hell could a man have done that much skillful editing in 1967 with a razor blade? I mean, I'm into old equipment myself. I have I'll show you if you can see, an Akai 4000 reel-to-reel over there. Again, apologies for the mess of the flat. I've tried my hand at editing, it is very hard. I don't know how he did it. And I also still don't know how he got half the noises he did that sound sort of like primitive synthesizers, but I know he did a lot of tape manipulation and stuff like that. He was really ahead of his time. Great stuff. And talking of ahead of its time, there's the next album, the first one credited solely to Zappa, Lumpy Gravy. Another masterpiece, sort of goes hand in hand with In It For The Money, not just for the quote, "Is this phase 2 of We're Only In It For The Money" on the back, and In It For The Money has, "Is this phase 1 of Lumpy Gravy." They were, bits of them were cut during the same sessions and things like that. Again, more crazy artwork by Cal Schenkel. I'm going to have to try and adjust something on this camera, it's quite blurry. Yeah, just completely out there. Interestingly, this only ever came out on the Black Verve label, which was reserved more for jazz releases and stuff like that, whereas the blue label was more for pop releases, shall we say. Yeah, just a crazy album, and it's not even credited to Frank. If you know, it's credited to the Abney Sills Amuka Electric Symphony Orchestra and Chorus, with maybe even some of the Mothers of Invention. Again, just a crazy album. Bits of orchestral pieces he'd recorded for an original version that was scheduled to be on Capitol Records. It was meant to be all orchestral, serious stuff. MGM found out about it, got involved, said we're not having it. That version has since been released by the Zappa Family Trust now. Very interesting. Most of the music showed up on this, and Zappa just sort of took the piss. I don't know if he saw it that way, with for any way of saying fuck you to MGM, and stuck a load of crazy stuff in between all the orchestral bits. Talking, sound effects, old sessions from the early 60s, you name it, he used it. I think that's the great thing about Zappa. He had so much stuff he recorded that he just used, which I think is a great technique, especially if you're in a band. You should record everything. Next up, Cruising with Reuben and the Jets, another superb album. Here's Doo-Wop Homage. He was a massive Doo-Wop fan, as I'm sure you all know. And this has the original Mothers of Invention sticker too, because apart from the name on the spine and the label, there was no mention of, you can't even see that, can you? There was no mention of their name on the sleeve. Zappa's high school graduation photo, I believe. Handsome bugger, wasn't he? And again, more awesome out there artwork by Cal Schenkel. This whole photo shoot was taken somewhere, I think it might be Italy when they're on tour, could be wrong. Again, there's two different pressings of this on the Verve label. This is the very first stock pressing. Promos are incredibly rare, as are UK original pressings. I did have a mono one which I sold. Yeah, this is the very first one. The first ones you can tell have a larger stereo, slightly different font if you want to be really geeky about it. The later ones have narrower font. They're from the early 70s, and then after that there's black label ones as well. Don't want to get into all that now, really. I just want to talk about the music. And now, this has caused much debate between myself and collectors over the years. It's the last album on Verve, Mother Mania. As you can see, it's autographed, but there is much debate as to which of them are genuine. I'll talk about that in a second. Don't know if you know the history behind this album. It has his Bizarre Records logo there, which had been featured since In It For The Money. This album, autographed there as well. This album was basically what they call a sort of contractual obligation album. He had to give one more album to MGM, so he basically did this, and different edits of tracks from Freak Out, Absolutely Free, and In It For The Money, and it's pretty nice just to have, just for the edit of Mother People, which has the incredibly offensive line, "Shut your fucking mouth about the length of my hair," which was cut out of even the unedited In It For The Moneys. It shows that MGM obviously didn't review the tapes when he submitted them, they just put it out. Didn't sell a lot. It's pretty hard to find out in good condition. And again, we've got some crazy artwork advertising the Uncle Meat movie coming soon, which of course never came out until 1987. So basically, the story behind this is I picked it up at a record fair in Wembley in London. The guy I bought it from had no idea. He didn't even know who Frank Zappa was. I think he picked up a collection and he just put this out and he had £10 on it. And he knew they were autographed, but he didn't know what to make of it. So this is the one that has much debate, the Zappa autograph. It's dated 92. I don't know if he was out and about doing many autographs then. Obviously he was already ill at that time with cancer, before he sadly passed away. Don Preston's signature was already on there too. And Ray Collins, which is probably the most unusual one, because Ray Collins hasn't done anything really since he left the Mothers in the late 60s. He was on Apostrophe in 74 doing backing vocals, but that was about it. He made a couple of demo albums in the 80s apparently, and it's interesting because he's drawn a face on there because he's not in the picture. Now, for years I just sort of thought, well, I wanted this album anyway, and it's nice to have it, you know. Anyway, a few years down the line, I went to see the Muffin Men, who are a bit more than a tribute band from Liverpool, and they had Jimmy Carr Black, the Indian of the group, singing for them. I was 15 years old, my parents took me, I was still underage, it was at a pub. And anyway, I met Jimmy Carr Black, a great guy, again, rest in peace Jimmy. I stayed in touch with him until he died, he was a really lovely fella. Anyway, he signed it for me, and he had a look at the he reckons the autographs were genuine. I guess he's a good guy to know. You know, he spent a lot of time with these guys, but I guess we'll never know. Again, the Zappa signature doesn't look like many of his signatures, and also it could even be 72 instead of 92. I really don't know. Quite an odd one, but a lovely one to have, and I'm very proud of that. Next up, I'll be showing my Zappa stuff from the Bizarre label.